11th of January 1923. Stunned Germans watch helplessly as French and Belgian soldiers took control of the Ruhr, Germany's mining and steel production region. This followed on from Germany's refusal to pay its war reparations, the fines imposed by the Treaty of Versailles. The French and Belgians took payment in the form of coal. In response, the German government ordered passive resistance, a miners' and rail workers' strike. The French simply replaced all the strikers. No coal was left for the Germans. The situation became dangerously tense. On the 10th of March 1923, a French officer was assassinated. His coffin was sent back through Germany to France, and French officers slapped any Germans who didn't remove their hats. These images would be profitably exploited by the Nazis, along with the death of 13 Krupp factory workers killed by the French on the 31st of March. Germans were cold. Germans were hungry. They tried to steal coal back from the French, but the Weimar Republic had to import its coal and pay the striking miners. These enormous expenses prompted the Mint to begin printing huge quantities of new money. The mark plummeted dramatically. One day, Germans had to pay 1 billion marks for a kilo of potatoes, and the next day, 460 billion for a loaf of bread. In this ferment of hyperinflation and unemployment, the Bavarian extreme right mobilized, with General Ludendorff as its leader. Thanks to Ludendorff, Hitler managed to unite all the veteran groups embittered by the defeat and the economic chaos. He wanted to attempt a putsch, a coup, to march on Munich, and then Berlin. Hitler said, "Our people are subjected to such extreme economic conditions that if we don't act now, they'll desert and join the communists." Thanks to their accomplices in the army, the Nazis succeeded in procuring guns. But after hesitating, the army and police decided to remain loyal to the legal government. For Hitler in Munich, all seemed lost. But he held on to the wild fantasy that he and Ludendorff could still bring the population along with them. So he ordered his supporters to advance on the police barricades. The two sides were face to face, with Hitler in his white coat in the middle. In fact, this was a Nazi photo montage creating the myth of Hitler's courage. In reality, he was cringing behind a bodyguard who was killed in the shooting. When the police opened fire, Hitler's 1923 putsch came to an end. 10 years later, after taking power, Hitler instituted a funeral celebration resembling a Nordic pagan rite every 9th of November, in commemoration of the 14 Nazis killed during the putsch attempt. Their names were called out, and every year in response, thousands of Nazis and Hitler youth shouted, "Present." Hitler had a mausoleum built in Munich, and Germans were obliged to parade through it, their arms raised in memory of those Hitler called the November Martyrs. They had to salute the mausoleum when strolling by, or even on a bicycle. Further exploiting the Putsch myth, Hitler created yet another grandiose Nazi ceremony, the bloodied flag. At each year's party congress in Nuremberg, he took the sacred blood-stained relic of the Putsch and with exaggerated forceful gestures he touched it to the new Nazi party's flags, as if to consecrate them. This quasi-mystical celebration is part and parcel of how the Nazis falsified history. The reality was that Hitler had badly prepared his putsch, that was improvised and haphazard. He showed himself to be impulsive, ignoring the possible consequences. All of these staged ceremonies record a fiasco, which could have put an end to the Nazi adventure. After the putsch failed, Hitler was arrested, and the National Socialist Party was banned. In February 1924, the trial of the rebels opened in Munich. Hitler was accused of high treason and the murder of 4 police officers, crimes punishable by the death penalty. Ludendorff, who had not even been incarcerated, arrived at the trial in a smart car with his lawyers. He was let off without further ado. Ranted about the struggle of the master race, the tall, blonde, Aryan Germanic race, about the need to conquer living space, about the eradication of communism and the crushing of the Jews, who, in Hitler's eyes, do not even belong to the human species. At the time, many readers judged the book to be complete madness. But in fact, it should have been read carefully and taken seriously, for its predictions lay at the root of the death of 50 million people.